Chapter 1. Our two actresses tied for Best Actress in Soap Chat's annual poll are good friends and enjoy each other's company off-camera as well as on the set of One Way to Live. Each was delighted to share the trophy and will celebrate with a picnic together. Soap Chat, May 1989. Bella. The Sunday of Memorial Day weekend, as my daughter and I drive to a suburb west of Boston, the sun warming the car is a welcome reassurance that winter's truly over. After we locate the blocked-off street and park nearby, Lila helps me find the right house. She then insists on ringing the doorbell herself. After a few moments, a freckle-faced redhead with a toddler on her hip opens the door. "Hey, you must be Bella and Delilah. I'm Penny, Cal's sister. We're so glad you guys could come." Ushering us inside, she gestures at a living room where every surface is covered with toys. "You can set your stuff in here before you head out to the street. There are tons of kids at the block party already." Squatting so that she's eye to eye with Lila, she adds, "Don't worry, I know a big girl like you doesn't want to play with a baby like Danny here. He has cousins that are older, and there are all ages in the neighborhood. Do you want me to introduce you to some of them?" "No, thank you," Lila says politely. "I'm gregarious." Straightening, Penny shoots a brows-up look at me before addressing my little word sponge. I think that means you're not shy?" "That is correct. Also, I prefer Lila." Lila nods solemnly, the way she does everything. Penny's monologue seems to have run out, so I steer Lila toward the living room. "Let's find a spot for your bag, and then you'll know where to find it in case you want to take a break and read." "How old is she?" Penny mutters under her breath. "I'm 5 3/4. Lila says over her shoulder. After handing her plaid backpack to me, no toy themes for this girl, she turns back to Penny. "I grew up in a bookstore, so I like to read." "Good for you." Penny nods. "Maybe you can teach Danny here." When the toddler pulls his thumb from his mouth and slaps his mother on the cheek, Lila winces. "Maybe." Bouncing Danny, Penny walks us to the front door. "I was just about to put him down for an NAP, but Cal and Jess are out there somewhere. If I know Cal, he's probably monitoring the water slide to make sure the kids are being safe. Did you bring a suit, Lila?" "I have it on already." Lila lifts her t-shirt to reveal her one piece. "Also, as soon as he learns to read, you won't be able to hide things from him by spelling." "That is an excellent point." Penny points a finger at her. "I will keep him ignorant as long as possible." Taking my daughter's hand, I start down the front steps of Penny's house. "Thanks for letting us stow our stuff here, Penny." "Anytime," she calls over a loud yowl from Danny. After Penny shuts the door and we head toward the crowd of people down the block, Lila squeezes my hand. "Don't worry, Mommy. It'll be fun." I make a poo-poo gesture so over the top I'd never get away with it on stage. "Who's worried?" Her expression makes it clear she's not buying it. Okay, you're right. I wish I were as outgoing as you." I put an arm around her and hug her into my side, but I'll be fine. What my daughter doesn't know is that when I was a kid, I was even more of an extrovert than she is, driven by an unquenchable need for the next high, achieved at first through novel experiences, then risk-taking, and finally sex, drugs, and alcohol. Only rock and roll was left off the list of my adventures. These days, I pretend to be an introvert. Makes it easier to keep temptation at bay and to hide from the consequences of past poor choices. Just like on stage, it's more comfortable for me to play a role than myself. For instance, today, I'll play the role of laid-back but responsible single mom. I'll keep an eagle eye on my daughter while pretending not to. The water slide is at the other end of the block, so I smile and nod at the people who look up as we pass. In this suburban neighborhood outside of Boston, every single family seems to consist of a mom and a dad and at least 2 children, probably a dog and a cat and a canary to boot. Lila has been excited about coming to this block party ever since Cal invited us. She not only has a huge crush on him, she's adopted his girlfriend, Jess, as her auntie. Cal's family is just like the one she's always wanted, like the families she's read about in books, with uncles and aunts and grandparents and cousins and fathers, none of which my little girl has ever had. Briefly, an image of our father flashes in my mind. What if he hadn't disappeared without a goodbye? Would he be walking down this street at my side, helping me watch out for our little girl, his palm on my hip a promise of things we might do later? As lovely as all that sounds, that's not my reality, so I pack it away. If I've learned one thing in this life so far, it's that there's only one person I can truly rely on, and that's me. Besides, what Lila doesn't know can't hurt her. Mommy, there they are! Dropping my hand, Lila sprints away from me to tackle Tammy and Abby. Jess's nieces are a couple of years older than my daughter and treat her more like a doll than a friend, but Lila seems to love the attention. Hey, everything okay? Jess interrupts my thoughts as I approach the group. Shaking my head and pasting on a smile, I say, I'm fine, just being a worrywart. I tip my chin at the clutch of girls jumping up and down in excitement. I'm still not sure the sleepover tonight is a good idea. She's never had one before, and I'd hate for your nieces to get tired of Lila just as she's falling for them. Jess gives me a side hug. My sister's a pro, treats kids at her practice all day, and still never loses it with those two. And your nieces are such nice girls. I'm sure I'm just having jitters, not ready for my baby to leave the nest. I thought you'd be more worried about the dog and pony show we have to put on at the fundraiser tonight. Thanks for reminding me. You know our scene and our delightful personalities will charm the money right out of those Shakespeare Boston donor pockets. She links arms with me. Have I told you how much I love playing your sister? It's much more fun squabbling on stage with you than fighting with my real-life one. Like daughter, like mother, I guess. Because I find myself wishing Jess were my sister. She's become the next best thing, my closest friend. I wonder, though, would she like me so much if she knew everything there is to know about me? The things that didn't make it into the gossip pages, as well as the ones that did? Hey, how's my second favorite Boston actress? After this greeting, I'm enveloped in a warm hug from Cal Alonso. Even though I've spent a lot of time with him since he and Jess got together, it still throws me every time the voice and the body come together. It's not the scars that cover the left side of his body. It's that I listened to him on the radio for years before meeting him in person, and I'm still a little starstruck. The way some soap opera fans feel about me, I suppose. It's been a few years since someone recognized me at the grocery store, but between my time on the PBS show Boom and the soap, I was on TV and in the public eye for 10 years. 10 long years. You ladies should eat. Fuel up for tonight, Cal says, steering us toward the food tables. It's a relief that he and Jess aren't drinking. Jess wouldn't, since we have to perform tonight. But I really appreciate that Cal isn't popping a beer either, since he's the one driving the girls back to Boston. With one eye on Lila, now running toward the water slide, where did she leave her clothes, and can we find them again? I fill my plate. Cal, you should have told me it was a potluck. I would have brought something. Penny says there's always way too much food at this shindig. Don't worry about it. We settle on some folding chairs and watch the kids on the slide. A couple of dads are supervising, making sure everything's safe, so I let myself relax. Man, I don't remember the last time I had fried chicken. This is so good. Same here, Jess says, literally finger-licking good. Any of that for me? Cal asks. She swats him away. Get your own. When he makes a pouty face, she groans before giving him a wing. He's got me trained better than his damn dog. After finishing her own, she wipes her hands on a napkin. I'm ready for dessert anyway. If you two are lucky, maybe I'll bring you some. Cal shoots a smile at me. We're both glad to see that Jess has gained some weight back. Her time in therapy seems to be paying off. The look on his face as he watches her skip away is a testament to the work they've both put into the relationship. They might have had a rocky start, but it's clear they're good for each other. I can't imagine letting a guy into my complicated life, but I'm glad it's working for them.
I have a confession to make,
Cal says. When he doesn't continue, I intone, "How many days since your last confession? Is that what I'm supposed to say next?" He laughs.
Don't tell my mom, but it's been so long since I went to Mass, I've forgotten the script.
Your secret's safe with me. I circle a hand in the air between us. Go on, get it off your chest. I'm sure I've done worse.
I don't know if you noticed, but when we first met, I was probably a bit cold to you.
Furrowing my brow, I try to remember. Maybe. I figured you were probably just shy. He shrugs.
I am still working on letting go of self-consciousness about my scars. Not assuming that it's the only thing a person sees when they meet me.
Well, I was probably awkward too. Every time you open your mouth, I expect to hear music. He laughs.
Guess I should carry a boombox with me.
A squeal from Lila has me rising out of my chair, but when I find her face in the crowd and see that she's laughing, I sit back down again. Sorry. What was it you wanted to confess? The right side of his mouth lifts in a lopsided, sheepish grin.
When I saw you for the first time, all I could see was Quinn.
You watched As the Earth Revolves? I do a quick calculation. Wouldn't you have been in school when it was on?
I missed a lot of school recovering from surgeries. It was my mom's favorite soap. We both hated you.
He leans in close to whisper,
I actually had nightmares about you.
I wince. I'm sorry. I promise I'll never reveal that you slept with my sister.
Or kidnap me.
Or force you to rob a bank with me.
Or convince everyone that I'm possessed by the devil.
All I can do is shake my head at the memories. Man, the older I got, the more outlandish Quinn's capers were.
It's probably a compliment to you that they thought you could carry it off.
I shrug, my cheeks heating at the praise. I don't know about that. He folds up his paper plate and the remains of his meal.
Anyway, the first few times we met, I really had to convince myself that you're not like her.
Adopting Quinn's blunt tone, I ask, how do you know I'm not? After a theatrical shudder, he points at Jess, engaged in chat with another guest.
Because that one loves you.
Nodding at my daughter, now running around with a bunch of kids shooting each other with water guns, he adds,
And you made that one.
Maybe I've got you all fooled. When I let loose with Quinn's signature cackle, he crosses his forearms over his face.
No, not the laugh.
We're both howling with genuine laughter by the time Jess sits down, balancing a towering selection of desserts on her lap. I don't even want to know, she says. All I want is this chocolate cake. She only takes a bite before drawing a line in the air between us with her fork. Okay, I lied. What were you two laughing at? She twists in her chair. Do I have a sign on my back or toilet paper stuck to my shoe or something?
Nah, sweetheart.
Cal rubs her shoulder, and she relaxes into his touch, practically purring like a cat.
Bella was just torturing me with her Quinn laugh.
You brought it up, I protest. Jess offers up her plate of goodies for sharing, and after I take a cookie, she says, I don't think I ever saw you on the soap, but I loved Boom. It was so cool to see kids like me doing skits and singing songs that other kids sent in. I wanted to audition, but the shooting times conflicted with dance and Hebrew. After taking another bite of cake, she tips her head to the side. You know, I never told you this before, but I didn't even know that was you. Izzy, I mean. I knew you were on the soap because Becky told me when you auditioned for the company the first time, but I wouldn't have recognized you otherwise. It's not easy to keep the corners of my mouth turned up. I was a lot younger then. It's not just your age. Jess shakes her head. You have a completely different energy. Izzy was so innocent. I finish when she doesn't. Maybe. More carefree, I guess. Being a mom kind of piles the cares on. No need to mention the choices I made that snuffed out that Izzy energy in me. Cal leans in.
I'm just glad she's not as scheming and evil as Quinn.
How evil was she? Jess asks. As Cal details Quinn's sensational schemes, I egg him on. Better than talking about my real-life problems. By the time he's finished, the pile of sweets on Jess's plate has disappeared, and I've relaxed again. Mostly. Quinn may have been a villain, but playing her was fun. Until it wasn't anymore. After scanning the crowd to make sure Lila's okay, I flop back into the webbing of my folding chair. Ugh, now I'm stuffed. Everyone goes quiet for a few minutes, and I sit back to enjoy the warm sun on my face, the background hum of people chatting, punctuated by the occasional shout from a kid going down the slide, calms any remaining agitation. My mood is as tranquil as the setting when Cal asks,
So, are you guys excited for tonight? Nervous?
"Both?" Jess says. "Yep," I agree with a groan. "I'm more nervous performing in rep than doing our scene tonight." Jess adds, "You're lucky you're only doing one show, Bella." When my mom talked me into auditioning for Shakespeare Boston last summer, I told them I could only do one play a season. Not only do I want to be around for Lila, but I help out at my mom's bookshop. "I've never rotated between two shows like you do in repertory." Jess continues, "I keep having nightmares that I go on stage in The Tempest wearing my Comedy of Errors costume." Even though they fight like cats and dogs most of the time, directors Nick and Mira managed to convince the company powers that be to try out a repertory schedule this summer, arguing that tourists will get a chance to see both shows if they're playing every other night. "At least you don't have to worry about the lines," I point out. Jess's memory is like a steel trap. She only has to do a scene once and she's got her lines down pat. I swear, the older I get, the harder it is for me to hang on to my words. I don't think my brain could handle learning two shows at once. "Might be relieved of your excuse sooner than you think." Jess tips her head toward the slide. "My nieces look like they're ready to adopt her." My gaze follows Jess's pointed finger. The three girls pose for a photo, which has me instantly on alert. So far, I've managed to keep Lila out of the public eye, but anybody can sell a photo to the tabloids. When I see that it's Penny taking the picture, my heart slows. It is a sweet shot. My little fair-skinned, blue-eyed girl is flanked by Abby and Tammy, who, like their aunt, have golden brown skin and jet-black hair. Tammy's face is rounder, framed by corkscrews as wild as Jessie's. Abby's hair is long and straight, and she's tall enough that she has to bend down to get in the frame.
My sister's a pretty good photographer, Cal says. Since they always give you double prints these days, I'll get you a copy.
Moment captured, the girls are off again, this time to the food table. I do my best to convince myself that Lila is safe at this party full of strangers, but the fear that my daughter will someday have to pay for the sins of her mother is a hard one to let go of. So far, Lila's the one thing I haven't screwed up. Jess catches a ride with me back to Boston and the gala since Cal is driving the girls back to Esther's house. When I ask her how therapy is going, I'm awed by how brave she is. Not only is she facing her inner demons, but she freely shares her struggles with me. She's talking a mile a minute while my own thoughts crowd her words, but one phrase snags my complete attention. "Wait, what did you just say? About the voice in your head? Sorry, I think I was zoning out." She laughs. "I totally geek out when I talk about this stuff. No judgment here. I'm just curious, have you ever named the voices in your head?" She tips her head to the side as she considers. "I don't name them, but I do have a picture for the one I'm wrestling with now. She looks like this ballerina doll I had as a kid. Perfect body, perfect bun, always on point. She's super mean. My therapist is helping me figure out how to listen to her without getting hurt or angry." "What does she say?" "Mostly stuff about women's bodies. Like, I'll be behind someone in the grocery checkout, and she'll tick off everything wrong with the poor woman's body. Saggy butt, fat rolls around the bra straps. Damn, remind me never to stand in front of you in line." She sighs. "First of all, you have pretty much the ideal body in her book. Second of all, she's harsher with me. I'm not sure if it's worse if I see a woman she thinks is perfect or someone she thinks is a mess. For the one, she picks me apart and tells me how I'll never be perfect. For the other, she tries to convince me that I'm headed in that direction." Wow, I thought mine were bad. What do yours say? "Why did you bring this up?" One of the voices in my head asks. "Who cares what she thinks?" The other counters. I glance over at my friend. I've never really had a girlfriend like Jess. The actresses I worked with in New York felt more like rivals. Later, after I had Lila, my efforts to make mommy friends met with little success. I'd reach out to moms who came into our shop or who I saw at the park, but I always felt like I didn't quite fit in, like the groups formed at some previous stage I missed. They were all married and knew each other from church or their other kids' schools. They'd pepper me with questions about working on TV, which made me uncomfortable, or they'd make backhanded comments about Lila not having a dad. So I gave up. But Jess has found her way into my heart. She's trusted me with her secrets. Maybe I can trust her with mine. You still with me? Jess asks. I shake my head to clear it. Sorry, I get lost inside my head sometimes. With an easy laugh, she says, Tell me about it. Swallowing past the panic that rises whenever I crack open the door I slammed shut after I had Lila, the only way I could figure out how to protect her from my past, I make myself say, I've always been fascinated by how other people's brains work, wondering if anyone's is at all like mine. Me too. It's one of the things I love about acting, she says. Like, you get to try out being in a different brain, a different set of thought patterns, different emotional habits. True, I agree, deciding to just jump in the deep end. So, when I was on the soap, I was a bit of a party girl. That's putting it mildly, the party girl herself says. Surrounded by hot guys, I can imagine. Jess says, Yep, that and a lot of other temptations. You can't tell her about the addictions, the good girl warns. You're not allowed. She's right, but I think I can skate over the details and still get Jess's opinion. I was also pretty much unsupervised after I hit 16, and I had a hard time figuring out what was right and what was wrong. At some point, it was like my conscience split in two, like an angel and devil in the old cartoons. Kind of like that, yeah. One didn't want me to do anything risky, and the other wanted to take all the risks. I ended up kind of reeling from one extreme to the other, staying out all night and then feeling bad about it and working really hard to be good. That must have been a little crazy-making. Jess's voice is full of compassion. Unlike the mom group, she's not pressing me for sordid details, which makes me want to tell her more. You could say that. At some point, in rehab, a voice sing-songs, but she can't say that. The other cuts in. I named them, I confess. Oh, that's an excellent idea, Jess says. I should name mine. What do you call them? I call the virtuous one Izzy. Like you when you were a teenager? She nods slowly. I can see that. Yeah, it sounds kind of crazy when I say it out loud. Eyes on the road, I catch a firm headshake in my peripheral vision. I think my therapist would say it's healthy. What about the other one, the naughty one? She's Quinn. I mean, half the people I partied with called me that anyway. It was easier not to correct them. Wow, that's perfect. So your pre-adolescent self and the character you played for how many years? 9? That's a long time to live in a character's head. She faces me, tucking her left leg under her. You must have given her some sort of backstory, right? To motivate all that bad behavior? That's right. Quinn sniffs. I'm not just a mean girl, I'm a risk taker. It's good to take risks sometimes. I took risks too, Izzy insists. Quinn rolls her eyes. In gymnastics? Ignoring their bickering, I focus on Jess's question. The writers wrote some in, but I did make up more. It was mostly about her father. She craved his attention, but no matter what she did, he never gave it to her for long. Sounds like someone else I know, Quinn mutters. Jess sits back in her seat. I can't imagine playing a character for that long. I mean, at some point, it would have to affect your personality. She pats my thigh. Not that I think you're a mean girl, but I can see how you'd have to organize those inner thoughts. She doesn't press for more details. Instead, she enlists my help in naming her own inner mean girl. Someday, I'll tell her how grateful I am for her friendship. But for now, I'm just going to enjoy the feeling of trusting another person with one of my many secrets. A few hours later, as I steer myself through the crowd of faithful Shakespeare Boston supporters, smiling and nodding and making small talk, my grip on sobriety is shakier than usual. Working in the bookstore and parenting Lila, I can pretty easily avoid situations where people are drinking. Since returning to the theater last summer, it's been a bit more challenging. I've only entered a bar one time in the past 7 years. After the closing of Two Gentlemen of Verona, a few of us took Ben for drinks before dropping him at the airport for a flight to Los Angeles. I felt so guilty about how my big mouth had messed things up between him and his girlfriend Lucy that I rallied the gang to make sure he knew we all loved him. Thankfully, those two worked things out, and Ben's an East Coaster now. Now that I think about it, nobody at Shakespeare Boston has ever questioned my excuses for avoiding alcohol at the handful of parties I've attended. I suppose they either think it's because I'm a mom, or they just don't care. Anyway, today's afternoon barbecue and this evening's gala are different from the never-ending partying I did in New York. As I take a sip of sparkling water with lime, I remind myself that I'm lucky to be here. I'm lucky to have Jess and real friends in my life. Friends that don't feel like they might stab me in the back if the situation warranted it. Just as I'm wondering what has made the difference, I hear my childhood nickname, Izzy? I steel myself for a Boom fan. Since I shifted to Bella when I moved back to Boston, I can tell what kind of encounter it'll be by the name a stranger uses. If they call me Quinn, it'll be a negative reaction, like Cal's. If Bella, it's usually a Shakespeare buff or a book person. But when it's Izzy, they'll want to tell me how we did a play they wrote or a game they made up. The show's premise was for kids, by kids. So if a viewer sent in a suggestion that the producers thought would be fun, it went on the shooting schedule to be performed with little rehearsal or skill, but a lot of enthusiasm. Instead of a stranger, I find a familiar face. Oh my goodness, Carol, you look exactly the same. The slim, well-dressed woman laughs. You're too kind. I feel like it's been 30 years instead of 15 since I saw you last, in person at least. You're all grown up. It's my turn to laugh. Yeah, I think I'm still working on that. Me too. Working with kids will do that to you. Are you still at WGBH? She nods. I am now the head of children's programming. Congratulations, I love that. Carol was an associate producer on Boom. There was a director that called the shots. Literally, he was in charge of the cameras and how the segments were filmed. But APs like Carol were the ones that coached us kids through bringing viewer letters to life. We spend a few minutes catching up. We both have kids now. Unlike me, she's married. She compliments my work in the scenes we performed earlier in the evening and says she's sorry she missed seeing me in any of last season's shows. It's funny that I saw you tonight, though, she says, tapping a finger on her chin. We're gearing up to shoot a reboot of Boom. In the summer? Not during the school year? Yes, she says. For better or worse, the shop is union now, so we can't work kids at night after they've been in school all day. Makes sense. I mean, adrenaline got me through it all, but I do remember being pretty exhausted the day after taping. I think it'll be good in the long run. We'll have the kids 5 days a week and get the season wrapped in a shorter period of time. It's less disruptive for them. Maybe it'll cut down on the bullying, too. It wasn't too bad for me, but some cast members were teased mercilessly in school after episodes began airing. More than once, we had to bolster a fellow castmate's confidence before we could get to work. Carol nods. This will give them a little distance from their regular life. We're also going to do team building to help create a cast dynamic. She makes a face I remember so well, the one where she's got an idea, but is worried it might be too out in left field. Laughing, I say, just spit it out. I know that expression. She laughs. You always were so perceptive and so interested in how things worked. Tipping her head to the side, she adds, I remember you hanging out in the control room with the adults rather than playing charades or board games in the green room with the other kids. Huh, I forgot about that. Picturing that now, I remember how welcoming the crew was. They put me on headset and even asked my opinion about things on occasion. Not that they used many of my ideas. So, what's your commitment to the theater this summer? Carol asks. Any chance you'd have time to play associate producer as well? We just had an AP have to take an early maternity leave to go on bed rest, and we're scrambling to find someone to step in. This is not where I thought this conversation was going. I figured she was working up to ask me to help with a fund drive or something. Wow, that sounds fun, but I'd have to see. I'm a single parent. A man sidles up next to Carol. After she introduces me to her husband, he puts his arm around her and gives her shoulders a squeeze.
Speaking of children, we told the babysitter we'd be back by 10.
Carol checks her watch. I didn't realize it was so late. She searches her clutch for a few moments before blowing out an exasperated breath. I don't have any cards with me, but you can just call the station and ask for me. She grasps my arm. Could you come in next week so we can talk about it? I'd love to have you on the team, and I'm sure we could work things out schedule-wise. Sure, I'll call. She gives me a hug before her husband hustles her away. I think I just got a job offer. Problem is, I already have 2 jobs on top of my responsibilities as a mom, and going back to television, just the thought has my mind and my heart racing, and I'm not sure if it's in fear or anticipation.